In today's video, I'm going to change the shape of this guitar's headstock from this to this. So if you want to see how I do it, stick around and I'll show you. Okay, so I have my guitar neck here. And I also have this little pattern that I made of what I want it to look like when I'm done. As you can see, the pattern is bigger than what I have here. So I'm going to have to graft on some extra wood. Before I do that, I just want to remind you that these tools are dangerous. Even the hand tools I'm using can cause serious injuries. If you're thinking about doing some woodworking yourself but don't have experience, please take some in-person training. It's definitely worth it. So this neck is made out of maple. So I got a piece of maple here that's going to match up with the type of wood that we got here. Okay, so I'm going to trim this headstock back a bit so it has some nice straight lines to attach to. I just think it'll be easier to try and match up with, straight lines versus these fancy Ibanez lines that we got here. To do this, I'm going to have to scribe some lines on the neck. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is just sand this finish off of here. It's just going to be easier to see the lines. So I've got a random orbital sander here with an 80 grit disc. And yeah, just going to go to town with it. Okay, so now that I got that finish all taken off of there, I'm just going to draw my lines. Okay, so I got my marks marked on the front and back of the headstock, as well as the edges. So now I just got to clamp this down and get cutting. See how this works. I guess my first cut wasn't in frame, but you didn't miss much. All I did was cut off this piece. Okay, so now I got my rough cut done. Now I'm just going to plane, potentially sand maybe, just to get this perfectly down to my line, perfectly straight. And I also want to get this edge perfectly square to both surfaces on the neck. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right now I'm just checking that I have this a perfectly straight line. So I've got a straight edge, and you can see where there's some light shining through in the middle there. So that means on either end, it's a little bit higher than in the middle. So what I'm going to have to do is just sand the ends of this a little bit more until I don't see any light coming through there. A good way to know where you're sanding is to just draw some pencil lines, right, onto here. So we want to sand the pencil lines off in our areas where we have too much material. In our situation, we here and here, and we want to leave the pencil lines in the middle. So there we go. No more light coming through. We got a perfectly straight line. So we also got to make sure that this surface is square to this surface. So what I'm going to use for that is a nice square. Well, this is kind of hard for me to do while trying to film, but I'll do my best. So basically you put the square on there. You're just looking for any kind of space underneath the square. I'm just sliding it along the edge of the headstock. Also, normally you'd want to have light coming from back here because it makes it a lot easier to see. So now I need to get this surface good. Okay, so now I have my two cuts made. They're perfectly straight, and they're both perpendicular to both the front face and the back face of the headstock. Now that this is done, I have to make this piece fit onto the new shape of the headstock. So I'm going to scribe the new shape of the headstock onto this piece of wood and then cut it out. So I have the new shape of the headstock traced out onto this new piece of wood. You can see all the X's is what I will be removing. So I've actually traced it all the way on all sides of this piece of wood so that I can hopefully get a perfect cut. So fingers are crossed that this will work out. Now all I have to do is cut it. Okay, so I was able to cut this piece out of here. So now I still have to sand it down to the line perfectly, but you can see what I was going for there, right? So now all I got to do is just get these two surfaces to match the headstock perfectly. Okay, so now we got the perfect fit. Again, this is kind of hard to show filming with one hand, but we got the perfect fit there. Now all I have to do is glue this new piece onto the headstock. So I don't really know how I'm going to do that yet because yeah, it's going to be a tricky gluing situation, but I'll figure that out. And of course, you'll see how I do it. You may be noticing that this piece is thicker than this piece. I realize that as well. Obviously, I'm going to have to whittle this down. I'm going to do that after it's attached to the headstock, though. Okay, so we got another ridiculous setup here. Now, this is how I'm going to glue this piece onto this headstock. So, it's kind of crazy. I'll go over it. So, the first thing is I have a piece of wood here that the neck is going to be pushed into this way. I have a piece of wood here that the neck is going to be, it's going to basically keep the neck from moving in this corner. Then we come over here and I have this piece of wood that the neck is going to be, the headstock is going to be pushed against. Now, I have some washers down here and they're just to hold the neck slightly off of the table here. I've got some wax paper lined down so my glue does not, so I don't glue this to the table basically. So this is the piece I'm gluing on here, right? I have the piece here and then I've got these other pieces of wood screwed to the table. So how I'm going to clamp it is I'm going to drive these wedges, these two wedges in here. Once I have my glue, I'm going to push them in and I have screws in such a way that they're going to pull the wedges in the direction that tightens them. And hopefully that will give me enough clamping force. So the glue I'm going to be using is just regular old carpenter's glue. A lot of people swear by Titebond glue. Maybe that is actually better. I don't know. This is what I got right now, so I'm going to use it. So the main thing is just to get a good coating of glue on both sides of what you're gluing. So what I like to do is just spread it. Just make sure I have a nice even coat all the way along. Because the last thing you want is not enough glue. You don't want too much glue, but you also don't want too little glue. Okay, so we got a nice coat on our new piece of wood. Now we got to get a nice coat on our headstock here. All right, so we got glue on all of our surfaces. Our neck is supported with the washers. We're going to put this here. Okay, I got squeeze out. So that's a good sign that we have enough glue. Now I'm going to get my wedges into position. Okay, so that seems to be working good. Now I'm just going to screw these wedges in. Okay, so this should be good now. Okay, so I got my wedges screwed in there. I've got some squeeze out happening with the glue, so I know I got enough glue in there. I know there's pressure holding it in. So I guess now I just gotta go take a break. I'm gonna let this dry out here for a couple hours and come back. All right, it's been about 8 hours now. I think I'm gonna take this apart and see how good it looks. All right, seems to be okay. I'm just gonna bring this inside to dry for the rest of the night, and then yeah, come back and work on it again tomorrow. All right, so this had a chance to dry out overnight. Now I'm gonna get ready to sand this new piece down to the thickness of the headstock. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually cut it off, so I'm not having to sand all this extra wood that I don't actually need. Okay, so that's done. Now for the next step, again, I'm going to be using my random orbital sander, and I got some 80 grit pads here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now this side is all sanded down in the right thickness, so I'm going to move on to the back side. Now that the headstock is a consistent thickness, we're ready to scribe out our new shape onto it and then cut it out. All right, so I've got the new shape scribed onto the headstock. Excuse me. Now I'm going to cut it out with my coping saw. All right, so I got cut down pretty close to the line with the coping saw. I probably could have got a little bit closer, especially there. But, you know, it's the way she goes. So now I'm just going to carefully sand it down to the line, and yeah, should be good after that. Okay, so we're done. We have successfully reshaped the headstock. Of course, you can obviously see where I patched in the new piece of wood. That's no problem for me because I'm going to be painting this headstock to match the body. So in the next video, I'm going to tear out the frets and fret markers. I'm going to install some new fret markers and re-radius the neck. After that video, I'll be refretting the neck, making a pick guard, and finishing the neck and body of the guitar. So if you found this video interesting and want to see how this turns out, make sure to subscribe. This channel is still super small, and you probably won't see the updates if you don't. If you can't wait until next week, you can check out this other video where I perform YouTube's sketchiest refret. I promise I will do a slightly better job on this neck. Until next week, talk to you later.